Hello, everyone. It's Tuesday night and it's time for Crime Unveiled with Courtney Bennett. Thanks so much for joining us. I have a guest tonight. It's Dr. Scott Bonn. I'm going to bring him on right now. Dr. Bonn, thank you so much for joining us. Now, you have a very interesting thing that you bring to cities across the country. You're a criminologist. First, let's talk about what that is and what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, Courtney. So yeah, I am a criminologist, and first and foremost, I study the patterns of crime and the motivations, what drives these individuals to do the things that they do, and then more generally, how it affects society. And my particular area of focus, and certainly the focus of the show that I'm bringing to Flint, is serial killers. And I have extensive experience and background there, having interviewed some of the most heinous individuals of the last 50 years or so.
For you, what is so intriguing and what is so interesting when you're doing these interviews with serial killers?
Well, you have to remember that these individuals they're almost completely devoid of any normal human emotion or reaction, and certainly lacking any kind of empathy. They're more machine-like, and they're manipulative, and I'm very aware of the fact that they will try to manipulate me and get gratification from me in any way they can, see me as a form of amusement, the mere fact that I'm interested in them. So I try to maintain a buffer and maintain a psychological distance, because they will try to control you, very much like Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling in the Silence of the Lambs. So I'm very wary of that. But at the same time, why do I do it? Because I think it's important to understand the worst of the worst among us, and thereby protect ourselves and have a better sense of how to deal with these kind of situations.
Right now, there is a big interest in serial killers, in that kind of crime genre. We see television shows, we see, a look at these documentaries. What is it that drives people to these types of shows?
Really, really great question. And, the interest in true crime is not new. We could probably go back at least as far as Jack the Ripper in the late 19th century over in London. And then he had a counterpart almost here in the United States, H.H. Holmes, in the late 19th century in Chicago. And but what has changed now is the technology and the 24/7 news coverage, and the internet and streaming live communication, whether it's in the courtroom or whether it's in investigations, that allows people to almost embed themselves into the investigation. And we have a term for this. It's called web sleuths. And so people who have this interest can now almost vicariously live the situation and be part of the manhunt and play armchair detective, which I love to do as a kid. I love the game Clue. I'm old enough to remember the board game Clue. Colonel Mustard did it in the dining room with the chandelier or whatever. So that's part of our nature. We love, investigations, and the technology is really fueling it these days.
And I just need to adjust my mic here. It has fallen. Sorry about that. All right, I apologize. The mic has fallen off the desk.
No problem. Do we need to redo that, or do you want to?
Oh, no, we're good. We are all good. So when it comes to your show that you're traveling across the country with, talk to me about what the audience can expect.
Well, great question. And I'm excited to bring it to Flint, because what I do is it's comprised of two different acts. And act number one is where I take the audience deep inside the minds and the psychology and the motivations of several of the most heinous individuals of the last 50, 75 years. And this is based upon my actual personal experiences with these individuals and my own unique perspective on them. So you're not going to get this anywhere else. It's from my own direct contact with people. And I'm talking about the likes of Dennis Rader, who narcissistically called himself Bind, Torture, Kill, because that's what he did to his victims. The son of Sam, the infamous David Berkowitz, and then more recently, the Long Island serial killer, allegedly Rex Heuermann in New York. I say allegedly because he's waiting to stand trial, but I'm pretty darn sure it was him. So that's the first act, penetrating deep inside the psychology of these individuals. And then act number two, we do a live interactive Q&A session where I take as many questions as possible in the time allotted from the audience and try to give them answers to every burning question, everything they ever wanted to know about serial killers. And that gets so interesting because you just never know from night to night and city to city what people are going to ask. And it often has a local flavor attached to it. And I love it because I get to know the community, I get to know the people, and we have a pretty exciting and interesting and even fun time. I try to keep it interactive. I try to keep it light to the extent that, it's not morose, it's not heavy. The subject matter is shocking and disturbing, but sometimes in the greatest horror and fear, you'll almost have a little bit of dark humor to break the tension. And that happens sometimes, where in the middle of a horror movie, all of a sudden, there's a moment where you laugh. And that happens sometimes because of the nature of these cases. Some of them are just so over the top and incredible that it's almost incomprehensible.
What has been your favorite audience question that you've received?
My favorite audience question. They've asked me even, do I want to be a serial killer? And the answer to that is a profound no. I think maybe the most compelling contemporary question, I would say, and really psychologically and burning is, I was recently asked why serial killers tend not to commit suicide the way that mass public shooters do. And that's a really heavy question, and it's a profound question. And the answer to it, just very quickly, is that the psychology is very different. Serial killers kill out of a lust, out of a need, out of actually a joy in killing, and they want to do it again and again and again. Whereas the mass shooters tend to be fatalistic individuals who want to die at the scene of the crime and go out what they see in a blaze of glory, where they're making a statement. The world screwed me over, but you're going to remember me, and this is my statement. So that's a very shorthand answer to it, but it's a great question, and it's really a contemporary question because of the increase in these terrible shootings.
That's a really good and interesting question. Now, when it comes to, we have a lot of unsolved crime here in Genesee County and in Flint. Do you think that people's investment and their interest in crime, does it help these cases and bring them to light and possibly get them solved?
Well, I'm going to answer that based on almost paraphrasing a very good friend of mine who happens to be a homicide detective in New York City. And he says it's a bit like trying to take a drink of water from a fire hose. And what he means by that is, to the extent that the public can provide tips and information, of course that's useful, but it's often strewn with so much useless information and so many conspiracies. And my uncle is a serial killer, and I'm sure he is. Just all kinds of irrational things that they have to weed through it all to find the nuggets that are really useful. So does it serve a purpose? Can it be helpful? Absolutely. But then it comes with a lot of baggage of its own as well.
We constantly hear of serial killers, both in the media, and obviously we've seen an increase in these documentaries. You said that it's been talked about for a while now. Is there a serial killing problem in the United States, or is it very rare?
Well, I'm going to keep some of this for my show because I do address this, and I hope people come out and see it. And I go into this in some detail and try to send people home feeling good with a sense of hope. Killers are on the decline. They're actually on the decline and have been for several decades for a number of reasons. And some of it has to do with technology and things like DNA. But what, the But the interesting and confounding thing is that at the same time that serial killers are actually on the decline, these mass shootings are on the increase. So you have them moving actually in different directions. And that's really what probably got to that question, because I'm also frequently asked, well, are the serial killers of the 1980s just becoming the mass shooters of today? And the answer is no. Two very, very different psychological drives. But yes, your audience can sleep a little bit better tonight knowing that serial killers actually are on the decline. But if you want to know all the reasons why, come on out and see me Saturday night.
And you will be in Flint on Saturday night, October 19th. How excited are you to be bringing this show to this audience?
I'm extremely excited. I really am. It's been a long time since I've been in Flint. I was there, some years ago, actually on a vacation. This is my first time there professionally. But yes, I am very excited. I actually grew up not that far away in Cleveland. I was there until I was 22 years old. So I'm a Midwesterner by birth and my adolescence. So I'm excited to get back. I really am. I can't wait to meet true crime fans there in Flint.
And Dr. Bonn, is there anything else that you would like to add that we did not talk about?
I would just say, you can go to my website, which is docbonn.com, docbonn.com, and that has my full tour schedule all over the country, and actually through next year, should you have friends or you're going to be in other cities around the country. And then also all the other things that I do. I have a Psychology Today blog. I have several books that I've written. And so anything and everything you want to know about me, you can find at docbonn.com.
And we'll be sure to link that on our website so that people can see where you're headed to next. If they can't make it out to the show this weekend on Saturday in Flint, I'm sure that it's going to be a great time and a very interesting time for people to check out. And there are tickets still available, so we'll post that link on our website as well. Dr. Bonn, thank you so much for joining us and providing this insight. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. Well, that does it for Crime Unveiled with Courtney Bennett on Tuesday night. Thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight.